let's say disinformation about what we do and kind of our role in the deals that we're in. So I thought it could be a good opportunity for us to talk about. I think there's two reasons, well, multiple reasons, but kind of two big buckets of why and when someone doesn't understand something. One, it's because we didn't do a good job of communicating it, right? And anytime something happens, we always want to take a look at what was our responsibility. And everyone is busy, our investors are busy, other people are busy. So we always wonder if we can communicate better, and it's always a process of improvement. The other thing is when someone has an incentive not to understand. So there's a quote that I love by Upton Sinclair. Yeah, that goes, "It is difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on his not understanding it." And we all know someone like that, right? So the the people who do prior authorizations, you try to explain them why this is important, or insurance companies that decline something, and you're in the right, you're explaining things in a good way, but they're just ignorant and they don't want to teach themselves, right? We have this happen with patients all the time as well. And so I think, the second people we're never going to be able to help, but the people that are actually willing and wanting to understand uh, what we're doing, and we're happy to do that, right? So there's been some stuff, maybe even seen it, a couple articles about what we do, and thought it would be good to break it down. So first, we really focus on education. That's why we do these talks. And a lot of people portray the people that invest in syndications as helpless, uneducated. I wouldn't call you that. The fact that you're here on a random Wednesday means you actually care about what you're doing, care about understanding. So I think that's a misrepresentation of the people that invest with us. I think that's a bit unfair. And so what a lot of people are talking about is the type of funds. And what they mean to say is the structure, right? The structure of the deals, right? So people typically think, right? There's GP, which is general partner, and LP, limited partner, right? And that is typically the type of arrangement we have, right? But there's for the GP side, there's different ways. There's different ways that these people can connect to each other, right? And there's different layers. So one layer that a lot of people have been talking about is called an access fund, also called a fund of funds. And then let's see, how would I say? Pessimistically, it's called a feeder fund, right? All the same thing. So what that is a collection of people, right? And they all show up as a single LP, right? And there will be other LPs, right? So there'll be LP, LP, right? And there will be someone who is the fund manager, right? Manager. You guys are going to see a lot of typos, not typos, miss misprints. Yeah. So there's a fund manager with an A, right? And uh, this person may be compensated, may not be compensated, right? And so a lot of people don't necessarily like these because there's an extra layer, right? Extra layer between you and the GP. So why would someone want to do this? One, the GP has a really high requirement to get in. So for example, 5 million, right? And some companies do have large requirements like that, or maybe it's 100,000, right? That's still a lot of money, especially for your first investment. Uh, so as the fund manager, because you are aggregating, oh, this is also called aggregation. Actually, listen, this person also can be called aggregate, right? You're aggregating money together to equal this number, right? Now, some people will do this and it's like 50K minimum, right? So it's not necessarily just because the minimum's too high. But this person, they have other possible benefits, right? So maybe they do all the vetting, right? It's a little unfair if someone introduces a deal to you, does all the vetting, and you go directly to them, right? Um, I mean, it's okay, but if it doesn't cost you anything, it's nice if you're all together, right? And so the question for this kind of deal is what value, right? What value is this person giving you that you can't get yourself, right? So, for example, we've only done this once, our very first deal, where if you went direct, it was 8% preferred return. And if you go through and if you have over 1 million, which we did, you get 10% preferred return. So that's why we did all of it together. And our investors benefited by getting that 10%. And that's why a lot of people will do it. They'll get the benefit, right? Some people will just do it because they say, hey, this is our deal. I'm getting a lot of people together, and they'll charge some fees. I, you know, a lot of people will kind of degrade this. I think there's a lot of value in someone doing all the work, getting all the money together, and for the benefit of the all, right? The question again is value. Are they providing value for whatever compensation they're getting, right? Because there might be more in fees, there might be more in promote, but I still think there's value. And if uh, if your compensation is pretty much the same, I'd rather have one extra person with their eyes on it because when I'm passive, I'm completely passive. I don't want to do anything, right? Uh, this is, access funds, fund of funds, feeder fund. This is not what we do. This is the the concern, right? Is that you're just at the end of the day, you're only an LP. And if something goes wrong, you really can't say anything, right? And so we have seen there be issues because people will invest with this person, and you're, like I said, one level separate from the actual general partner, and that causes you to not have as much protection, right? And if they're not providing value, they're not on property management calls, they're not talking to the sponsor for you all the time. It makes you question, like, what is the worth of this person? And why are you getting charged extra fees or anything like that, right? So when things are going poorly, this could be of an issue, right? So that's one structure, right? And you'll see this with much smaller syndicators, right? And it's a way for a lot of people to start. I mean, the way I look at it is like, hey, I'm just gonna get together with a bunch of my friends, and maybe we can get better terms, And that's kind of what the thought of Ascent was. We all collectively could get better terms, better deals, by aggregating, by putting all our capital together, right? And a lot of you all will do the same for your medical office. You'll do small multifamily. You'll buy stuff together because together you can buy a lot more than by yourself, right? And so it makes sense. Now, the other structure that you have is called a joint venture, right? And this is the type of structure that you often see Blackstone, Stone, JP Morgan Chase, the large institutions, right? When you think of institutional, you will usually see this. I mean, sometimes they'll do their own deals, But usually, like a bank is not going to do their own deals, right? They always work with an operator, right? I mean, they have the money, but it makes a lot more sense to work with someone else that's really boots on the ground, right? So what do you do for a joint venture? Joint venture typically means you bring anywhere from 80, 90% of the money, right? So if the equity check is 10 million, you will bring anywhere from 8 to 9 million, right? And the rest of the money is brought by the GP, right? So you will be an LP, you'll be an LP. However, you have something called major decision rights. This is what we always have. So what are major decision rights? The biggest one, removal. That means in a very specific cases, if the sponsor, the operator, is not performing, we have the ability to kick them out. Now that is very important, right? You as a sponsor don't want to give that out unless you have to. But to bring it 80 to 90% of the capital, you kind of have to. And this, Blackstone, JP Morgan, all these large companies require this. And this is also something we require. So most of our deals are joint ventures. We always have major decision rights. And so a lot of the press that we've seen that mention us don't talk about this. They talk about us being feeder funds, which we are not. Even though I think that there's no problem with those. Because feeder funds don't have major decision rights, right? Because if you think about it, right, you can have multiple feeder funds. You can't say everyone has major decision rights, right? You need to have one person, right? If you have two, how do you decide between who has the ultimate decision, right? So removal, that's a big one, right? And then smaller things, right? Permits from working with the government sucks, but we have it. Contracts with anyone, CPA, lawyers, property management, anyone you can think of. We have major decision rights on that. Annual budget. We get to approve that. And they have to justify if they are over it. I don't really care if they're under it, as long as they're performing. But we get to approve it, and this is something we're following on a regular basis. And they have to have regular meetings with us to discuss that, right? Insurance. We get to decide on who we do with insurance. So you can see these are the major things, right? The loan, right? Why do properties go down? Because of the loan, right? Insurance, the budget, anyone that they hire, permits, working with the government, right? Anything government, remove the sponsor, right? So you can see while major decision rights, right? And then all the stuff down to like the logo, right? The color. We did Sunset View. You guys saw that, right? Sunset View or Cabana Encanto, right? We had to rename it. You typically rename stuff after you buy it. I promise I'll talk about Sunrise on Chandler in a little bit, but I kind of want to give background. Sunrise on Chandler will keep the same name because it seems to be working. So major decision rights, and that's kind of.
Are you here?
Okay. Someone was very
Are you
excited.
here, Rita? Come here.
Oh, let me figure out who that is. Okay. If you talk again, I will. Oh, I think it's Raj. Hey, Raj. I'm gonna meet you. Okay. So, that is kind of the big thing about joint venture, right? How much money they bring, because you're not going to want to give joint venture. You don't want to give these rights to someone that brings in 10% or 30%. We've been offered it for 51% before, but it has to be a majority. And this is only with someone that we know very well, because even this 80-90%, you don't want to give this to everyone, right? You want to give it to people that know what they're doing in real estate, right? Because this stuff could bring down a property very quickly. The operator, the GP, could be doing everything right, and we decide on the wrong loan, or someone decides on the wrong loan. Oh, buy, sell, right? Another big one. We get to decide when things want to sell, right? Insurance. So all these things are very important and really are the lifeblood of the property. So you don't want to give this to anyone, right? You want to give it to people you trust and people that actually have responsibilities that you've worked with in the past, right? Or they're an extremely large organization that knows exactly what they're doing, right? So we will not do a deal unless we have major decision rights. And all we've done a couple funds where it's hard to get major decision rights, but basically our last 6 deals have all had major decision rights. And Sunrise on Chandler also has major decision rights. And it's very important. And this is what differentiates us for pretty much any physician syndicator out there. That raises money. So there's a handful of doctors that are operators. Obviously, you have major decision rights because you're the operator, because they're your own decisions. But for anyone that does the role that raises money, is this is the only us. So I think it's rare. So it also gives us a lot of power because you don't necessarily want to do all this, but it gives you a lot of power, especially this one, really to make sure that everything is going right. The removal and the annual budget is probably the most important in terms of really protecting our investor, right? So there's one more structure that is common that we do. That is called co-GP. Co-G, that's a G. Co-GP or co-general partner. Or co-sponsor. Right? So this is when you're actually running the deal with someone, that you're part of a team. You're not just bringing in the equity, but you're actually part of the general team. So how does this look like? This looks like you're actually helping to run the property, right? So I think the syndication business is really split up into 3 things, right? So 1, acquisitions. So finding the deal, negotiating with the sponsor, really everything it comes to before actually buying the property, right? There's a lot of work because if you do really, really good job on acquisitions, you pretty much can just coast the rest of the time. It's not that we would, but it helps you tremendously later on, right? 2, asset management. So after you buy the property, making sure that you enact the business plan and that uh, everything is going right. Because almost always something goes wrong, right? Almost immediately. Just look at like your shift, right? Or clinic shift, right? You're 5 minutes behind, and you're 15 minutes behind, and you try to catch up, and you're just spending all day trying to catch up. So even with the best acquisitions and the best plan, things go wrong, right? And the real people that are doing well are the ones that are able to course correct, right? So this is, I think, by far the most important. And actually, over the last couple years, people who have done really good on acquisitions have been fine, right? Because you've been able to get out of properties very quickly. But now we're really in it for the long run, so asset management is going to be very important. And the third part is capital raising, right? You have to find money to buy the property. There's no one that has 20 million just sitting around, right, to buy properties. Even the people that I know that are worth over 100 million, all their money is in the stock market or retail or real estate. They don't actually have a ton of money in the bank, right? So what Sunrise does is they're very good at finding deals. So this is the 3rd deal that we're doing with them, Sunrise on Chandler. and they live in Phoenix. So they, they go golfing, they drink whiskey, all the things it takes to butter up a broker. And they're local, right? So they're about 10 minutes from Sunrise on Chandler. So they have very good, and their asset managers all over there. So they're also very good at asset management. So Sunrise on Chandler specifically, it's 97% occupied, no evictions, which you hear about the Phoenix market softening with rents not going up, but they've been consistently able to get rents up for the past 2 years, kind of really bucking the trend of Phoenix. And that's specifically because Chandler is such a great area. It's right next to the city hall, bunch of breweries, bunch of independent coffee shops. So it's a really cool, like urban, semi-urban downtown. Kind of a mix of like a downtown and a suburb. It's right next to the police station, so it's a great area, and they've been able to manage it extremely well, despite running out of money to pay the debt. And then what our role is so we bring the capital, right? We have our network. One of these articles said like, oh, we're really good at raising capital, yeah, and we are, right? Because a lot of people have grown to trust us because we've done well for them in the past 4 or 5 years. And what's actually unique for us is we actually have a full asset management team. We're on weekly property management calls. We're walking some of these properties once a month. And it's actually rare for someone who raises capital to also have asset management. But we think it's so important that we want our own eyes and ears on all our properties. And so it's pretty unique. And we're actually going to, for those of you that have invested with us, we're actually going to start asset management podcast so you can really hear about all the cool things we're doing, which is like very modern. It's pretty cool. I'm always surprised every week by the new ways that we're able to improve our tenants' lives and be able to really make it a good place, safe, and in turn, if you take care of your tenants, they're more likely to pay you. So it's a win-win. So in terms of being a co-sponsor, we're actually, we're really doing asset management alongside with them. We did acquisitions, right? We visited a property, we did our own due diligence, right? We signed on the loan. So, none of these feeder people or fund of funds will sign on a loan because that is taking responsibility and liability, right? But we feel strongly about our property and we're a co-sponsor, right? We have major decision rights. So we are actually a full partner in this deal. So a lot of times you'll see, there'll be the word co-GP kind of gets thrown around. And for those of you that have taken our course, we actually ask you to ask the sponsor, like, okay, yeah, you're a co-sponsor, but what's your actual role in the business, right? What are you actually doing? Or are you just basically raising money, right? A lot of people will tell you, oh yeah, I'm investor relations, or I do this. But for us, it's, we're doing a lot on the property. We're going to be visiting this all the time. We're on property management calls. We're helping decide when to raise rent, when to decrease rent. We're talking about renovation scope, right? So we're really in this as co-sponsors or co-operators. Co-operators. Op, operator. Yeah, that was hard to spell. So yeah, so co-operators, right? So we're actually running this together. And we're working ourselves towards being operators ourselves. We actually have something really interesting we're looking into it for potentially end of the year next year or beginning of next year for people that don't want to pay any taxes. So be on the lookout for that. So this is kind of the general outline, right? So fund of funds, fund of funds, right? JV, OGP. And then obviously the operator is there as well, and that's the biggest role. And then these have major decision rights. And these are the two that Ascent does. So specifically on Sunrise on Chandler, we are doing co-GP or co-sponsor. So hopefully that makes sense on the deal. So we're going to help asset manage this. We're going to be visiting the property a lot. We're going to be helping figure out rents. We're going to be figuring out we're going to be helping manage the property manager. We're going to talk to the contractor. We're going to help hire people. Really the whole process. And that's why we feel strongly about the property. So let me see what kind of questions we got. Oh, shit. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so first of all, John, I think it's John Cho. Appreciate you. Thank you for asking very interesting questions. Okay, so let's talk about Sunrise. Okay, so it's always interesting when you map out your relationships with someone, right? There's like a little spider web, right? So we use Skylar Kirsch. We used to use Skylar Kirsch as a lawyer, right? And our lawyer also did law work. And we use this firm because they do a lot of real estate. And you know those different structures that I told you? It's really important that your legal paperwork really outlines in excruciating detail the roles and responsibilities. Because, when things are going well, it's okay, whatever, who cares? But when things go poorly, you really want to have the backing of the legal paperwork, right? So it was important that we had a lawyer that really saw black and white, because there's a lot of lawyers that see a lot of gray. And our lawyers, he's expensive, $850 an hour, right? I thought neurosurgeons made a lot of money. So I always make him pay for lunch when we go out. So he connected us to Sunrise as a sponsor. And interestingly, he actually invested with Sunrise. And that's what really keyed us in, because he's a securities lawyer. He sees a ton of deals. Fortunately, he's invested in one of our deals too. But he sees a ton of deals. And he not only sees that, he kind of knows where all the skeletons are hidden. So when he recommends us talking to a group and he's invested with us, kind of our ears perk up. So we did a small deal with them we talked to them for over a year. We visited multiple of their properties. And actually, so Ian from Sunrise I want to say he was either the first or second employee of Tides back in Tides glory days, right? And he thought that they were too the nice word, cavalier, a little too cavalier. So he went out and started his own company. And they have five exits in Phoenix area, all like crazy 70 plus IRR. But that was also back in 21, 22. So I just look for positive trend in that direction. Just because it was super high doesn't mean they'll actually be able to get it again. So early Tides was actually pretty successful. They got billions of full cycles. Unfortunately for Tides, I think they got a little bit overloaded. And if you've ever seen that cartoon where someone runs over the cliff and they're building a bridge while they're walking, right? I think that's what happened. And interest rates just went up too high and they weren't able to catch up. I actually think if interest rates would have went slower, they would have looked like all stars. But it is what it is, right? And I'll talk about the pivot after Tides in a bit. But so we did a deal with them, and we asset manage them. And that deal was a home run. So we bought it in 2022. In 2023, so 2022, right? Peak prices and everything. So in 2023, we already hit year 3 pro formas, and it's just doing really well. It's it's like 92 units, so a little bit on the smaller side, but doing extremely well. They're managing it amazingly. And then for those of you that are in Cabana and Kanto, that deal has also been doing extremely well. We bought it directly from the builder. The builder had only gotten it up to like 89% occupancy. We got up to 95, and now we're just kind of sitting on the property. So we really like them. They are great to work with, and really are happy with our hands-on way that we manage. And I can tell you, like, other people have turned away because we're so heavily involved in our deals. But I actually don't know anyone that even in a co-GP or a JV that has a hands-on as us. And actually, people have not taken our money because we're so hands-on, but we don't think anyone else is going to care about your money and our money. For most of our deals, we're actually the biggest investor. So we don't think anyone's going to care about our money as much as we do. So we're heavily involved. And like I said, asset managers are very expensive, but it's important to us to have a full team, multiple people that are going to our properties, visiting them, weekly phone calls. Now we have 10 properties, so weekly phone calls, that's like 10 hours, right? You're just doing a minimum an hour a week per deal, and then you're flying to multiple states, multiple cities. Well, it's pretty involved. Now, talking about pivoting, right? So when we first started, we started with investing, really just Peter, Myth, and I, right? Excuse me one sec. Kind of deals that we cared about. And most of us wanted to really improve our net worth, right? So we weren't really focused on cash flow. And I was like, I really don't care about cash flow, right? So the first couple deals, including the deals with Tides, were really focused on getting that big pop at the end, right? So Tides, and other groups, basically, I'd say about 70–80%, all did variable rate loans. We got a rate cap, of course, but we got variable rate loan. And now we're paying for it. The Fed said they weren't going to increase interest rates that much. They weren't going to go over 2%, but they kind of had to. Now, first it was transitory, and then it went up and up and up, and now it's higher for longer, right? So in mid 2022, right around when interest rates were going up a little bit, right? It had only gone up like percent. We decided to stick to fixed rate loans, right? A little bit before everyone else. So 2022, we did 4 deals, and then 2 of them had fixed rate loans, long-term loan assumptions, right? Now loan assumptions are super hot, but we were doing them in 2022. One had a very long rate cap, and then one had a variable rate loan with the interest rate cap. So and then every single deal since then has been fixed rate loans. So we've really been trying to stick to that. And the second thing is that we're really focused on cash flow now. So it might give you a less of a return, right? Because the quicker I give you your money back, the less money is in the deal to grow, right? So, but we think that having higher amounts of cash flow gives you a buffer effect, right? And so all of our deals have really focused on minimum like 3.5% of cash flow, and that's with a pretty conservative underwriting, right? So we have really high expenses and really trying to make sure that we're actually getting that to you. So fixed rate loans, cash flow are the 2 real things that we're looking for, and really making sure that we buy right. So we have to get a large discount according to the current value, not some marketed value, not a value from peak pricing, but make sure we're getting a value compared to current prices. So Sunrise on Chandler, for example, the broker, the person who would actually do the selling, thinks it's worth 49 million, and we're getting it for 46.5. So that's in accordance to actual value right now. Now, according to what the buyer paid for it all in 2021 is 60 million, 60. So we're getting it for $13.5 million discount from then. I think it's more important to look at what a discount you are get from getting current values. So basically, almost immediately, right, you're gaining 3 million in value, and it just gives you more of a buffer. And remember, only 11% of Sunrise on Chandler is renovated. So there's a lot of opportunity for not organic rent growth, but forced appreciation, forced growth. And they're getting over a $300 premium on all the renovated units, but there's only like 15, so they're all sold out. So John's asking about skin in the game. We try to hit around 2.5 to 5%. I can tell you that over time it gets really hard. So I'd love to do 10% of Sunrise on Chandler, but that's 2.2 million. John might have that laying around, but we don't. And Peter's going to send out a video tomorrow, but literally every dollar we have gotten from Ascent in fees and anything else has gone back into the business. We have taken zero profit from the company. So basically every dollar we have goes into the business. We just don't collect that much money, right? So $2.2 million is really hard to do. So we put in as much as we can from our other sources of income. But we need that money to keep the lights on, right? Because we're not taking any money home. But as investors know that, if there has been issues for properties, we've been putting in our own money for that as well. So and for some of the properties, well over $1 million if they needed to buy a rate cap or anything. So we put our money where our mouth is, and really don't take anything home. And we know over the long term that'll pay off, but right now it is a little painful. So John is asking about kind of, let's see, how do you raise rents, right? So Sunrise on Chandler has 3 different classes of properties, right? So there is classic, there's partial, and there is renovated, right? And I will actually, give me a second, I will pull up the numbers for that. Could have probably done this before. Okay, so this is, so classic, when you think of classic, think of, I call it cabin chic, right? Where everything is brown, right? There might be carpet in the bedrooms, thick brown carpet. Appliances are black, right? This is maybe a little, cabinets have been painted, floor is wood, but it's not, the fully nice one. If you look in the deck, all the pictures are the renovated units, right? Quartz counters, recessed lighting, stainless steel appliances, and open kitchen, right? So pre-acquisition, this was 925. So obviously there's, you improve, like you're able to raise rents a little bit because of, being nicer, operational efficiency, nicer gym, nicer clubhouse, the pool that you guys see, right? So this is about 1800. So you can see, and this is somewhere in the middle. There's a huge delta, right? But they've only been able to renovate about 11% of the building. So that's mostly because they ran out of money. They had to use all the money to cover the debt. So how do you go from this to this? So if you think about your life as an apartment, I actually was in an apartment not too long ago, in terms of renting, before the pandemic, and I I would have a 1 year lease, right? And every so often it would be random, right? One time it was August, another time it was January, another time it's so every month there's always a certain percentage of people that are moving out. And that's why actually 97 to 98% occupied is ideal. They're at 97. But because you want there to be a little bit of churn rate, if you're 100% occupied, that means not many people are leaving. You don't have the opportunity to do renovations. And you really want to get this to here, right? And we already have a contractor. We could do 6 to 10 of them a month, right? So in 2 years, we can get the whole thing renovated, right? But potentially we're heading towards a recession, right? In the fall. Especially because the Fed says higher for longer, right? Higher interest rates for longer. So fortunately, we've been able to really like navigate around this. But at some point, right, we're going to run out of options. This might not happen because of the election, but it'll probably just get a can kicked down a little bit longer. So we want the ability. So maybe if things slow down, and that's why it's arranged. Maybe we do 2 renovations or 4 renovations, right? Every month, we're really looking at, okay, which ones are getting rented out? Which one are there demand for, right? You don't necessarily want to spend the money if you're not getting the premium, right? This is 100% worth it. And you do something called return on cost, right? Return on cost. Right? You want to make sure that the money you're spending, it's about 10 to 12K per unit, that you're making that money back in a reasonable amount of time, right? So it should be higher than the IRR. If the IRR, which we are saying is 14 to 16%, our return of cost should be higher than that. So we should make more than this for our investment, right? Otherwise, why would we make that investment? So these are the things that we're really on top of, right? And making sure that it's a good use of money, right? Because you can have this business plan, right? But the world tends to knock business plans out of the water, right? So Mike Tyson says everyone has a plan till they get punched in the mouth. So the people that have been super successful are the ones that are able to pivot. And because we're so heavily involved on our properties, and we own multiple properties, not just with Sunrise, but with other people as well in the Phoenix area. We're able in multiple different suburbs. So we have a really good idea of what's going on, different classes, different neighborhoods, different social demographics. Yeah. And so if someone wants to live in the same unit, we'll kind of decide, there's a lot of cost and turnover. I just had one of my tenants leave I own a small apartment in Los Angeles. It cost me $1,000 to fix it. So that's like the profit for a couple months, right? So if someone's been living there, they're taking care of the property, you may not, you may just raise rent $50 or $100. So you want to get them used to rent increasing every so often on a regular basis, but you make exceptions. And that's why it's so important to have over 100 units in the property, because then you have someone who is able to work full time on the property. Anytime you have less than 100 units, there's not enough profit on the property to manage to have someone full time. But just having someone full time makes a world of difference, night and day difference on getting to know someone, knowing who's good, who's not. Maybe there's a problem tenant, and we could raise rent a little bit faster because they're causing issues with everyone buy. But the cool thing about Sunrise on Chandler is there's zero bad debt. Basically, everyone is paying on time. There's no evictions, which is extremely rare. We own a Class A, Cabana Encanto, right? So many of you have invested there. Class A, high end, and there's still evictions there, right? People pass their credits and everything else, but so it's extremely rare to have zero bad debt. And yeah, so we talked about, last time we talked about occupancy and bad debt, why those two really go hand in hand. So having a high occupancy means there's a lot of people that are renting out and leading to you getting paid. And low to zero bad debt means they're all paying on time and the full amount. So you really want to see high occupancy and low bad debt, which is what Sunrise on Chandler has. So it's 97% and zero basically, or maybe like $1,000, which is almost nothing. So that is why. Okay, so that's when you increase rents. Any other questions? I don't see a ton in there. Yeah, so we're always raising rents. And when we look at it, we want to make sure that we're providing value, right? So when you look at the classic units and when you look at the renovated units, there's a night and day difference. We're also renovating the gym, adding a bunch of machines. We're renovating the clubhouse. We're really making sure it's a secure place, hiring security guards if needed, and really making it a good place that people want to live and really call a home. There's a cool patio. Everyone gets this enclosed patio, which is nice, especially for people that have kids. So you don't want to just go in and increase rents for no reason. You want to make sure that you're providing a ton of value so that people are happy to pay more because the value that they are getting is worth so much more. The property actually across the street is a great comparison. The rents are about $100 cheaper than ours, but nowhere near the amenities. The units are way older, right? And has a ton of carpet, no wood floors, ugly, non-recessed lighting, but it's a little bit cheaper. So we feel good knowing that, and they're 98% occupied. So 97, 98, about the same. So we feel great knowing that that's our real direct comparison, and it's just so much better. Cool. Okay. Well, everyone, thank you. I know it's Wednesday. Appreciate you taking the time to listen, and I'll chat soon. Bye.